Hello and welcome to Channel's Book Club. I am Olakunle Kasumo. Poetry is a form of literature that is loved by many people all around the world. Whether it's William Shakespeare, Maya Angelou, Robert Frost, Oscar Wilde, Mark Twain, or Ralph Waldo Emerson, poets have always fascinated people worldwide. Nigeria has also produced some amazing poets like J.P. Clark, Wole Soyinka, Jimmy Solanke, Ben Okri, Christopher Okigbo, Chinua Achebe, Mabel Shegun, Lola Shoneyin, and many others. What they all have in common is the ability to find the right combination of words to express observations, experiences, emotions, and opinions in the most creative ways. One of the greatest poets that ever lived is a man called Pablo Neruda. Let's get to know a bit about him.
Pablo Neruda was a Chilean poet, diplomat, and politician. He is regarded as one of the greatest poets of all time. Neruda, who was born in July 1904, became known as a poet when he was 10 years old. In Latin America, he was and is poetry. No poet has more passionately and thoroughly spoken for his people than him. Canto General, for example, is a 15-part book comprised of over 200 poems and 15,000 lines. It tries to map the entire history of Latin America. It is an ambitious project that seemed to unify a country. Neruda's poems articulated hopes, dreams, desires, histories, protest, sexuality, beauty, and national pride like no one before or since. Because of his poetry, he became an ambassador, a statesman, and even his party's candidate for president of Chile. He's had a movie made about him, The Postman. In Chile, his houses are national museums and his legacy is deific. Neruda believed poetry could change the world, and he knew that well-crafted, passionate poetry could create political and cultural revolutions. He often wrote in green ink, which was his personal symbol for desire and hope. Pablo Neruda won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971 and died 2 years later in the month of September 1973.
Someday, somewhere, anywhere, unfailingly, you find yourself, and that, and only that, can be the happiest or bitterest hour of your life. Laughter is the language of the soul. He who does not travel, who does not read, who does not listen to music, who does not find grace in himself, she who does not find grace in herself dies slowly. There is no insurmountable solitude. All paths lead to the same goal, to convey to others what we are, and we must pass through solitude and difficulty, isolation and silence in order to reach forth to the enchanted place where we can dance our clumsy dance and sing our sorrowful song. But in this dance or in this song, there are fulfilled the most ancient rights of our conscience in the awareness of being human and of believing in a common destiny.
Our guest author today is one of Nigeria's up-and-coming poets. Please meet her and enjoy an interview I had with her at Pataba Bookshop, Surulere, Lagos.
Hi, I'm Adejoke Ajibade Bakari, author of The Sun Shall Soon Shine, a poet, and this is my debut book. My journey started so many years ago. I would say 2009, that was 7 years ago. That was when I was in my transition to motherhood. And poetry found me as a means of writing happenings and so many wrongs in society. And I found poetry as a form of expression. And that's the beginning of my journey as a poet.
Okay, nice to have you on the Channels Book Club. Thank you for joining us.
Nice to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, the sun shall soon shine. Congrats on your book.
Thank you.
But let's talk about your writing first. How did you start writing? When did you start writing?
It's a very interesting question you've just asked me. Actually, I started writing in secondary school. Never thought much of it. For me, it was just a way to express myself. I remember now, long after, when I published my book, The Sun Shall Soon Shine, that I actually wrote my first poem, Be Yourself. That was the title, Be Yourself. I think I was in SS1 at the time. I attended Nigerian Navy Secondary School, Ojo. I was in SS1 at the time. And I just wrote it, and I was reading it to my dad and to my siblings and everyone that cared to listen. And I also remember that there was this time at school that I did a poetical performance on this poem by Adejoke, Africa, My Africa. So I had forgotten about that incident, until when I published my book. So I would say writing is something that I've always had, but I never really recognized. The point at which writing became a very constant experience or constant happening in my life was when I became a mother. When I was to become a mother, I was studying in the UK. I was with my husband, just running my master's program, and then I was pregnant. So I was at home much of the time, and the way UK is, like you are on your own, there's this solo kind of living and everything. So my husband would go to work. He had a part-time job then as a student when we were there. And I found myself being at home alone a lot of the time. So that was how my journey started as a poet.
That's a very interesting story. Poets generally, isn't that the story of poets generally? Poets are deep thinkers, are they not? They don't just walk past life or walk through life. They observe, they grasp, and then they try to find the words that articulate their observations and their experiences. Is that correct?
I would say that's very correct. And in my own experience personally, even when I'm not deliberately observing, I feel like a sponge. Like I'm soaking it up all in, for a time when it just comes out. So when I write, for example, I write as if I had written it a long time ago. So the words just flow. And then most of the poems in my book, I would say, at least the later poems, when I started becoming more comfortable, in the cloak called poetry, that is all around me, I would write some poems in, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. The words would just be pouring out. Like, I don't get that feeling of being free or satisfied until I'm done, So yes, I think poetry are deep thinkers. We like, even when we are not aware about it consciously, we are constantly soaking it all in. And, we pour it out through our words.
As a burden of creativity.